This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
And welcome to the latest edition of Sundays with Dominic and Vito. Without my brother Dominic, as usual, it seems like now. But I have a co-host and a guest, I guess you can say, in Andy Denryter, the head of Team Denryter quarterback, also the Chippewa Valley High School here in Clinton Township, Michigan, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Vito. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully your brother's absence is something I can enjoy here and take advantage of to spend some quality time talking sports with you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think you'll make up for it, too. And you know what, Andy, as I like to say, so you went to Chippewa, you coach at Chippewa. I like to say my second high school is Chippewa Valley. I didn't go, as you know, went to DSL Collegiate High School in Warren, Michigan. But if I would have gone to a public school, I would have gone to Clinton Township, Chippewa Valley High. And then I have cousins, a Sad family that went to Chippewa. Nick Sad played football at Chippewa, just like yourself. So I've got my ties to Chippewa, and I do root them on. I'll let you know that. I root them on along with De La Salle. So
well, that's okay.
That much.
We appreciate having you, in our corner. It's always nice to have somebody from the area who's also, a sports, I should say, enthusiast probably doesn't cover all the bases for you, but a sports fanatic, a well-read reporter and blogger and everything. So you're definitely an honorary member of our community.
Well, thank you very much. And I know you were an umpire growing up. I want to bring this up really quick here, okay? Yeah. I was an umpire as well, and because of your dad, Mr. Denryter. I didn't know his first name, actually, because it was Mr. Denryter to me. Out of respect. And much older, and a guy that I learned from, and he got me into umpiring in the city of Clinton Township in the Clinton Valley Little League. I'll never forget that, Andy.
No, and I remember when you were playing. I was about to
say, you umpired me. Isn't that funny?
You guys were, probably from the time you were 8 up through 13, 14 in that league. And I vividly remember you playing, your dad as the manager. I think you guys were the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we were at one point, and we weren't good. I had a lot of bad teams I was on, too.
That's okay. But I remember umping you there, the All-Star games, the travel tournaments, state tournaments. So it's funny, a lot of kids from our era that played in that league went on to be very, very good players, either in baseball or football, some of us golfers, at different schools. I think of you and a few of the guys played at De La Salle. Like Calvin Leong was in that league, who was on the state championship team there. We had quite a few guys at Dakota and Chippewa, and then some of we ended up playing with in college together. It's pretty cool to see how far back that lineage goes. And even one of the others I always remember, Jenna Kelch. I think she was maybe in between our age, but ended up being a Division I hockey player at Providence, and played baseball in that league growing up. So it's nice to see where recreational sports and youth sports make an impact. It wasn't a travel league. There's just a bunch of pretty solid athletes and kids playing youth baseball the way it used to be.
Having fun.
Yeah.
And recreational sports hasn't gone by the wayside. But, Andy, as you know, I know declining numbers in a lot of sports, including baseball, and locally here once again in Clinton Township, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree. It's becoming, the term epidemic is not accurate. People throw that around. But like you said, everybody's in a rush to play travel league this, travel league that, AAU. I don't understand why people want to commit those sort of resources. To me, and you'll understand this as well, you get better by practicing, not by playing. If you're in a baseball tournament and you're gone for the weekend, you might get 20, 25 at-bats if you play every game, right? So if you're out there practicing 4 days a week, how many more at-bats and swings and work on what you're trying to develop would you get? I don't know. You could field 200 grounders in a practice. In a weekend, you might get 15. You
might not even play at all, or you play sparingly. You play an inning or two, maybe one game out of 3 or 5 games throughout the course of a weekend.
Yeah.
And it's a long weekend, and then you're not even playing. Your parents travel with you, spend all that money to get you somewhere, to house you in a hotel right over the weekend.
Yeah.
And then all the money, where does it go? So I know there's a lot of conversation we can have about the AAU circuit or travel circuit,
We'll
too.
put that sometime after the Super Bowl.
We'll table that.
Yeah, table that.
But speaking of reps and really working hard at your craft, I want to get into Kobe Bryant and the tragic passing really quick of KB, war number 8, war number 24, died tragically on Sunday in a horrific helicopter crash. And it wasn't just him, also his daughter, 13-year-old Gianna, who was a hoopster and star in the making, and then 9 people in total. Tragic stuff to hear of this, a 41-year-old in Kobe Bryant who had so much more to give and so many more people to impact. And off the basketball floor, he had started a life for himself and really carving out a path and a legacy for himself that was non-basketball related, as you know, Andy. So it was so darn tragic. Can you speak upon what his death meant to you when you heard about it this past Sunday?
Again, it was what normally happens when you hear about somebody young passing away. Immediately there's doubt. No, this can't be right. It must be, some sort of rumor on the internet. But it was funny. So we were at with my TDQB, was working this camp we have called Camp Rain. It's an 8-week program out at an indoor facility. So we've got the kids there, and we're just finishing on Sunday right as news is breaking. And all of a sudden you see everybody, picking up their phone and getting the alert. And for the kids, I feel like this generation is maybe the first generation of high schoolers that's going to be there without Kobe, right? I mean, compared to our era, right? I mean, Kobe was the answer to Michael Jordan, right? He was the heir apparent to carry on the NBA legacy. I mean, when Jordan left, there was this wonder of, who, I guess when he was ending his prime, who was going to take over that mantle, and it was Kobe. Kobe's the guy who picked it up and led the NBA for 20 years. To see someone at that age with a family around them, his legacy just wasn't finished. As great as it is right now, he wasn't done, and you feel terrible for his family. Now they have to move on without him. The other people involved in the crash, obviously, I think there were 3 younger girls who were all on the basketball team, and what could those teenage kids have gone on to do? It's just a tragic story, and it's something you don't want to see anybody at that age lose their life to anything.
And then I was thinking, too, of this, Andy, what Kobe was starting to do for women's basketball, which could use it. He was a brand ambassador for women's basketball at the youth level, the WNBA. Those women, those girls, including his daughter and daughters, loved him so much and what he did for the game of girls basketball.
Yeah.
So I think about that. Who's going to pick up now in his honor and really help towards building that, what he was building, and towards that movement? Because he really, in my opinion, spearheaded that movement to really build up women's basketball at a large, widespread level?
It's a really good question, and I'm not connected enough in the basketball world, especially the travel world, to really say who would be in position. But it shows, your question shows what a huge loss it is. Where are you going to get someone with that kind of notoriety and star power to be an activist and a voice, for that side of the game, that really tends to get overlooked and discredited sometimes. But when you've got someone like Kobe, how can you discredit what they're working on? So hopefully someone else will be inspired to take that up, right?
I hope so too. And I'll leave you with this about the Kobe death and his legacy discussion. The Black Mamba mentality now. Can you reflect upon that and how much you think it's helped out athletes who are younger than Kobe, older than Kobe, whatever age these individuals may be? How much do you think that Black Mamba, that hardcore work ethic mentality has helped out athletes younger than us and older?
Yeah, for our generation, Kobe was the epitome of the two-way superstar, which the NBA struggled with for a long, long time. And they still do today, I think. It's one of the reasons why I struggle to watch regular season NBA basketball. There aren't enough guys like Kobe out there playing hard both ways all the time. And for someone who's involved in sports as a coach, that's everything you want. You want all your players to emulate that mentality. I was just listening to a story they were talking about. One of the reporters from L.A. who used to work here in Detroit, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but talked about how Kobe invited the staff from the newspaper out to a workout, and they're going to question him, and they said 5:45, and they assumed it was in the evening. And no, he was in the gym every day in the summer at 5:45 in the morning to do his individual stuff, then would regroup and come back for teamwork later on in the day. Who would not want to have that person on their side in any business, right? In any organization.
Now, do kids still have that mentality, you think, enough? Now, you coach, like you said, you're a coach at Chippewa Valley, Team Denryter quarterback, training quarterbacks. Do you think enough of these athletes and the quarterbacks that you train have that mentality?
I think the kids who tend to seek out the training do, right? Because they wouldn't be seeking it out, or at least not in high school if they weren't as interested. Maybe in middle school, you get more kids that, their parents are trying to give them the tools, waiting to see if they take it. But at least what I can say in this area is most of the kids, they want to be the person who puts in that kind of work that I've worked with. Now, they might not know what it takes yet, but they're usually willing to take that challenge on. Or maybe I've just been lucky and had,
the right young quarterbacks
right group of kids.
To mold and train, right?
A kid like Tommy Schuster, he couldn't get enough of it. Both our quarterbacks that we had this year, Jack Donovan, Josh Kolka, same thing. I could not keep these guys out of the gym. I don't know. Maybe they're just in that top 20% on the bell curve. But like you said, I don't know if that's risen to Kobe level yet. That's a whole nother level of Mamba.
It might also be that Chippewa Valley difference and Team Denryter quarterback difference with those guys and how they're hardcore with their work ethic and getting into the gym, training with you and others early in the morning on a daily basis or 5 days a week, let's say, right? And how important is it to have that mentality? And for you as a coach to try to implement that mentality and instill that in the heads of the guys that you coach and train?
I don't think it can be overstated how important it is. Yeah, as a coach, I would much rather, and I'm sure you'll understand this, I would much rather have to tell a kid, stop working so hard. You need to take a day off, right? Those are the kids you want, because that's how I felt I was. I didn't ever think it was clear I wasn't good enough to just show up and win. You better get in there and outwork this guy. That's the only way you're going to get ahead. So if you can find, like you said, if you find the right mix of kids who work like that and have talent, man, you're unstoppable. And I think you've seen some of that. One of the kids that comes to mind too, that maybe I didn't coach directly, although he worked with us on the 7-on-7 team, was Jacob Dobbs, who just graduated at De La Salle, and sure enough had a phenomenal year at Holy Cross, All-American as a freshman. Freshman All-American team. He's that type of kid, right? And so you can see where that leadership at the De La Salle program made a huge difference. And Chippewa has been lucky with that over the last few years. Eisenhower was like that when Max Whitwer was there. Max trained with me, and Max was that type of leader. So if you don't have those guys at the top, yeah, like you said, you're going to struggle to compete with the elite teams.
And you need talent, okay? At the end of the day, you need talent. And we talked about that off air too. There's some kids just like the talent. Yeah. And no offense to them, it's just they're never going to become as great as they think they can.
Sure.
But having that mentality still to work hard and to instill that into them, great. And we should aim for that as coaches. And I know you do with Team Denryter and with Chippewa Valley. And
yeah,
Scott Merchant, the head coach at Chippewa, does the same. But I was going to bring up now these guys at the next level, playing professionally. And let's talk football now.
Sure.
Okay, this is a
let's
football Super Bowl preview podcast. But a guy that's won 6 Super Bowls, not playing in it this year, Tom Brady, okay, who's a free agent now, might not rejoin the Patriots.
That'd be amazing to think.
I want to reflect upon, well, not only that we'll get into, but his hardcore work ethic. Because look at this guy, a 6th-rounder out of Michigan. Wasn't going to be this great Hall of Fame caliber QB like he's become. So it tells you right there, right, Andy? You still have to work at it, man. You can have all the talent in the world, and obviously he did more than scouts realized he did right at the time when he was drafted.
Right.
But still, think about all the work he put in to become as great as he became, too.
Yeah, and you can see, like you said, just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to be one
Tom
of the
Brady
greatest.
now,
Right.
too, right? It's not going to happen for everybody like that.
Yeah, like you said, it's got to be. You have to have the right combination of talent. But I remember when Tom had just gotten out of college, and maybe they had won 1 Super Bowl, but watching video of him at Michigan, even then you could see he was outworking everybody. He would take, I'll do this with our quarterbacks now. If however many dropbacks he took during the day, at the end of the workout or practice, he would turn and do the same thing left-handed, so that he would balance his body up. He didn't want to overdevelop one side. It's little things like that, and you wonder, you see that, and it makes sense why Belichick loves this guy, because they clearly think about things the same way. Little details that could be overlooked, but other people, they miss, and that's why they're not able to keep up with 10, 15 years now of greatness in that organization.
And then the Patriots could be losing him once again. As you were starting to say already, it'd be crazy to see him leave New England with what he's accomplished with that one organization. But at 42, I think 42 years young, I can see it kind of for him, because he's still playing at a nice enough level. Not a high level, let's say, this past year, but I guess I'll let you analyze it. Okay, I'm going to have you put the analyst hat on now for me. Tom Brady this past season, how good really was he?
I don't think the drop-off is as significant maybe as people think. One of the issues they could not overcome this year was the lack of weapons around them. And I know they've gotten by without that several other years. I mean, they've never really had a plethora of offensive weapons there. But it watching the film, it looks like a combination of some parts on the line that maybe aren't working as well together as they had in the past. The running game was not quite as effective as it was last year. And you really need to lean on that if Tom's not where he used to be. But you can see there's a little bit of velocity off the ball maybe from where he was at 10 years ago. Not enough of a difference that I don't think he can still be incredibly effective there. But it's hard when you lose a guy like Gronkowski and you don't really have a premier playmaker on the outside. I know they tried to bring Sanu in and they tried to bring different guys like Brown in, but you're really relying on Edelman. And then after that, I mean, you be the quarterback. Who would you throw to in that offense, right? Who's the young kid? Is it N'Keal Harry? I think out of Arizona State. He's a project.
Was going to be good, but he's a project right now. I mean, that was a first rounder, but still, he's a project.
It makes it a lot tougher on you because you don't have guys that are getting separation. And I'm sure that that's one thing we'll talk about going into it, leading into the Super Bowl part of this podcast is at that level you have to have guys that get separation and get open. And if you don't have that, you're really, really going to struggle at the NFL because one, you have to be incredibly accurate. You have to have impeccable timing. You've got to be able to anticipate windows and breaks. But then if that guy can't get, if he's only getting half the amount of separation as the guy who was last year, it makes things pretty difficult. So I still think Tom's got 2 more good years in him. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody still signs him to a 2-year deal instead of a 1 year. Because why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're a team that's struggling, say you're the Chargers or somebody, you'd be willing to take that chance for 2 years. Because if not, where are you at then?
Because Phillip Rivers now supposedly is leaving.
Right.
So who are you going to replace him with? L.A. Tom? I mean, I can see him in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and the Chargers underachieved this year. A season ago made the playoffs, so they have the talent surrounding him. How good would the Chargers be with Tom Brady under center?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of the same things. I think the Gordon hurt out this year hurt them significantly. I don't think they really got into the flow of
he
their
never
offense.
did, Gordon, then, too.
Right. Yeah. No, he never really got back to where he was 2 years ago. I think San Diego would be a pretty darn good team, even with Tom there. I think he does some things that Phillip Rivers maybe doesn't do. I think he can drive the ball downfield still a little bit better than Rivers can. But as a GM, even if he comes in for 1 year, if you give him 2 years, let's say he plays one, that next year you still, like you said, you've got enough talent in that organization, that team to really be competitive for the next 5 years. So if Tom doesn't play the second year, you tank a little bit, you get a top tier draft pick, you can pick up a quarterback and still have a lot of talent around that organization and turn it into a playoff contender right away again.
So now, who else would be a good fit, you think, for Brady? Because people have talked about the Colts. Jacoby Brissett, probably not good enough. Now, I think he's coming back to be their starter, unless they acquire Tom Brady, Rivers, Breeze, you name it. Somebody of that mold, that type that's a veteran, right? Maybe the Bears. I mean, you can tell me what you think about Mitchell Trubisky, because he struggled this year compared to the past season. He was better a year ago. Bears with him, too, maybe under center, are a playoff team like they were a season ago. Colts with Brady under center, maybe they're a playoff team, because the Colts, for a team without a true franchise QB, Luck retiring didn't help them out before the season started. But let's say they get a franchise passer like Tom Brady, how good could they be? And also, how about the Bears then, Andy, as I had said?
I think there's quite a few teams that, like you said, they're on the cusp. Either they were just outside the playoffs, on the outside looking in, or they were in. I think the Colts have all kinds of offensive potential there. I think they had faith in Brissett. I didn't really have nothing against Jacoby. I just didn't see enough that I was really sold on giving him a long-term deal. But, maybe he needs another year behind Brady to try to develop, or you just decide it's a stopgap with Brady and you try to move on from there. But definitely the Colts could be a good fit. They're in a winnable division. The Texans are not they're not a 13-3 team right now. They easily could compete with Houston. The Bears, tough division, but the Bears are a really talented football team. You put that defense in there, you find another running back that's a pretty solid receiving core there. I think it would make sense. I don't know if Tom would want to go to Chicago or not.
To a cold climate, he might not want to. That's why I know Miami, the Dolphins also have been talked about. A team with not as much talent, and if he wants to win.
Slightly less.
Right. What are his aspirations, though, which we don't know, we can speculate.
Right.
But if he wants to win a Super Bowl next year and go out like on top as a Super Bowl winner with another franchise that's not named the Patriots, you could see the Bears. Tough division, but maybe the Bears. Maybe the Chargers, like you said. Maybe the Colts. Yeah. I think Colts or Chargers, two hot teams for him right there that could win a Super Bowl with him under center, too.
I think when you think about, you start lining teams up that would make sense. What's going to happen in Tennessee? What's going to happen with Ryan Tannehill?
Is he the real deal?
Signed?
And you can tell me, is he the real deal to start off anyways? Because you went with him year to year, right? He had a nice year, half a season, remember, too.
Right.
But he also didn't have to throw the football a ton because he had Derrick Henry being the bell cow running back.
So Tannehill might get a long-term offer from another organization and be gone. Well, it's pretty clear that Tennessee's done with Mariota.
Yeah, they've moved past him with Vrabel as the head coach now.
Yeah,
Vrabel likes Tannehill, or you're getting somebody else. And you have
Vrabel's got connections.
You have that
Brady
connection.
could be a stopgap there, right? Come in for 2 years. You're still going to have Derrick Henry. You've got an outstanding defense. You have an elite run game. You're pretty much back in the scenario. Very good tight ends. You got a pretty solid young receiving core still. That could be a nice situation for Brady to jump into there. And again, not in a monster division, a competitive division. Carolina could be an option depending on Cam's health. I don't know what's going to happen. But can you imagine Tom Brady checking down to McCaffrey all day?
That'd be crazy, man. Right? And he's a check down artist as it is, right? Always was, even in his heyday in New England. Yeah. So McCaffrey now getting the ball, man, in open space.
Maybe Tampa Bay moves on from Winston. You just don't know with Arians. There's so many questions out there with some of these organizations. But I don't know. If I was a GM and I thought we had a playoff team and I wasn't sold on the quarterback, I don't see why you wouldn't take a chance on bringing Brady in. If nothing else, then to establish, like you said, that culture and expectation of what needs to happen. I mean, Manning went to Denver, phenomenal defense there. He was, I think, at that point in Peyton Manning's career, he was further off of his prime than I think Brady is right now. I know he had one really solid first year, but it was really about the first 12 games, and then they started to slow down a little bit there. If you were the GM, would you bring him in for something like that?
I would, for a 1 year gap. Like you said, that the quarterback just for a season to win with, and then you move on from him. Let's say if he retires and you build from within, you get younger through the draft, and you get your future franchise passer that way. So I think teams are considering that. And then, like you said, you brought up a really good point with Tennessee. Superb defense already. And then Mike Vrabel is the head coach. Yeah. Played in New England with Tom Brady. Why not bring him in? Because Tannehill might be out of town. They've moved on from Mariota, clearly, as you said. Tom Brady in Tennessee. That'd be a really nice fit. And, he's better than Tannehill still. I mean, I don't know how much better anymore. It's not like Brady's elite per se anymore, but he's still better than Ryan Tannehill at this point.
And how much better is Tom Brady going to make the other players on your offense because of the continuity and the system that he's going to bring in, the expectations, basically having him running your offense on the field. I mean, for young guys, it can't be overstated how important that is. But I think back to your point when you mentioned Miami, though, I think if I were a betting guy, I have to imagine Brady is only going somewhere that has a legitimate chance to contend. And so I think that eliminates some of the Miamis of the world. But he doesn't need the money, right? I mean, his wife out earns him, I think.
Which is crazy. Giselle does as a supermodel.
So they don't need the extra, $25 million versus $18 million. I don't know if that really matters to him.
So he sold his house in Massachusetts. We know that much. So, I mean, that gives you the sign, well, he's leaving New England for sure. We still don't clearly know that right now. And he might not even know himself until March, let's say. But if he wants to go to a warm climate and win, I think the Chargers, man, really stick out as a top destination for his services.
I agree. I think the Chargers are a good franchise there, and there's not too many better offers that will be out there. But there's no saying that New England won't bring him back. Like you said, I mean, when you've got that kind of money and you've got I have to imagine his house is worth a few $1 million. It might have sold, while the market's high and they can buy wherever they want. But I'm sure that, I don't know, I'd rather retire in California probably than Massachusetts.
I think I would too. Forever. I'll say that much. Yeah. Now, Ryan Tannehill, to him really quick, how good of a quarterback do you think he truly is? I have been a huge fan of Tannehill since he was at Texas A&M. Friends of mine, we got to go down. We had friendships with Mike Sherman's family, who was the head coach there. And so we got to go down and watch Tannehill, watch him practice, watch him play. And I've always liked him. I always thought he was a dark horse Heisman candidate his senior year. His numbers were going to be off the chart. But I think with the struggles in Miami, as you said, the roster was not what it needed to be for his level there. But to me, he's a top half of the league quarterback. He's never going to be a top 5 guy. But I don't see why you couldn't win with Ryan Tannehill. Why watch some of the other guys out there? If you put him in the right system, he's not as good an athlete as Russell Wilson, but he's a lot better athlete than people give him credit for. So I think with stability, I'll be honest, I think I like him more than I like Kirk Cousins. Okay.
No disrespect to Kirk, and I know he hasn't maybe had the success yet, but I think the ceiling for Tannehill is above where it is for Cousins.
And more of a pure athlete. I mean, Tannehill played wide receiver at A&M, which people don't even realize at this point because it's been so long since he played at A&M.
Right.
And I'll tell you the truth, I forgot that Mike Sherman was the head coach at A&M.
Yeah.
It was such a long time ago, the guy that coached the Packers with Brett Favre at one point when the Packers were good, before McCarthy. So, I mean, he has that tutelage to be a primetime athlete and quarterback, too.
He's been
That's
groomed.
the thing.
Yeah, definitely. But, at some point, though, you are, like they say, you are what your record says you are. So at this point, he's probably, somewhere between 10 and 15 level quarterback. Maybe he can get into that 8 range, but he's still a guy you can win a lot of football games with, as Tennessee showed this year. So, a lot of it might have to do with who's calling the plays for him. I mean, guys like Kyle Shanahan have had a lot of success with Matt Ryan, different quarterbacks that maybe aren't elite level quarterbacks, but they're good enough to be serviceable. So we'll see where he lands. If he gets in with the right organization, I think he's still got quite a few years of starting at the QB position ahead of him.
And Andy, it leads to this discussion now regarding Matthew Stafford. What you said about Tannehill. He was able to win in Tennessee. He's not the greatest quarterback, but let's say, like you said, how you characterize him as, maybe top 15 QB at least. Matthew Stafford, to me, is clearly better. So why haven't the Lions won with him if he is clearly better and can be a top 10 to top 12 quarterback in the league? And I digress now, and I want you to tell me, where do you think he ranks among the league's passers?
Yeah, I still think Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. I haven't always felt like he's been playing at a top 10 level, even though he has top 10 ability. I think there are a few years, especially in the Lombardi and Cooter days, where I think that hurt his status. I'll be honest. I don't think, I think the media overplayed the first probably 8 games of him with Cooter and what they were able to accomplish. I never saw the level of consistency. I never saw development in the run game to help him. I thought Cooter was, unfortunately, I mean, it's not his fault. He was thrust in the position. I thought he was in over his head. You know, when I like you, I watch the film. I get the NFL Game Pass. I watch a lot of the end zone tape and trying to learn and kind of evaluate what's going on. So, unfortunately for Stafford, back to Matt, sorry, he can be top 10. He is top 10. I think you see that with Bevel's been an outstanding coach for him. This system is really, really meshed with his abilities. I think with Galladay and Jones and Amendola, hopefully the development of Hawkinson, I think Matt will get back into that top 6, top 8 conversation and establish himself. But, you know, you're talking, so now you're ready. Breeze, Brady, some of these guys are ready to retire. Rodgers is quite a bit older than Stafford, still starting to fade. Like, somewhere he's got to get pushed up, right? He's got to get pushed up the board when these guys leave.
At some point, I would think, I mean, he's top 10 at least now because of those guys on the downside of their careers and or retiring. I mean, Rodgers wasn't very good against San Fran in the NFC title game. Rodgers disappointed hugely. Now, San Fran was a better team all around in defense of Rodgers, so Packers probably weren't going to win that game anyways. But Aaron Rodgers ain't that guy that he used to be. And how many years has it been now? You evaluate the film. How many years has it been since really Rodgers was truly elite?
I mean, I think you go back to 2 years ago, he was still outstanding. Last year, they dropped off significantly to me. And watching him, especially in the 2 Lions games this year, he was very underwhelming. I mean, missing on throws that you just don't see prototypical Aaron Rodgers miss on. That Week 17 game, it looked like he was out sick or something. I mean, he looked like a completely different quarterback. Right?
It looked like they were trying to lose. They were trying to lose the game. It was that bad. And the first time around, too, where the Lions, should have won that game. And, I mean, their season went down the hill after that. But, God, still, I mean, it looked like he wasn't performing at a high level like he used to in those 2 games against the Lions this season.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing Rodgers goes out against the Lions. I mean, he's typically completing 75 to 85% of his passes. I mean, he had traditionally played really, really well against Detroit for most of his career. In the last few years, he's started to come down to earth a little bit more, but I always feel like when I watch Rodgers that he has games where he's just a little disinterested. You know, like it's just kind of always his personality. He doesn't have, going back to the Kobe thing, I don't know if I would classify Rodgers as having that Mamba mentality. Not like a Brady. I think he's one of those highly talented quarterbacks that can take over a game if he wants to, but you're going to get a couple of games a year where he's just disinterested in what's going on, or it's like almost like the guy, it's not challenging enough for him, right? It's like he's too good. And then he gets ticked off and like flips the switch in the second quarter, third quarter, comes back and he's just lights out. I think he's used to being able to do that, and he doesn't have that same physical ability anymore. Because they had a pretty solid running game. I mean, they've done a nice job of redeveloping their run game this year, which for years was terrible, right? And he just carried them. But he's another guy that I think, unless there's some changes to be made here, maybe he's one of those guys that needs to, who knows, right? Some guys redevelop their nutrition plan, their training program, different things, and it makes a huge difference at the end of their career. Maybe it's something as simple as that. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just he needs to, reassert and get back to what made him great to begin with. But he's just not. He doesn't have the scrambling ability that he used to. He still extends plays pretty well, but he's not quite where he was 3 or 5 years ago.
And people thought he needed a new head coach. Yeah. Matt LaFleur took over, first-year head coach, leads them to the NFC title game. Great first year.
Sure.
But the offensive numbers across the board, and for Rodgers specifically, were not that good, like you said. And people thought Mike McCarthy was the problem. Well, you went to a new head coach, new offensive play caller, right? Didn't make a difference. His numbers were stagnant or worse.
Right.
And it's always, you know it, right?
Always
you,
coach.
Andy. It's always you, man.
Coach.
How about the guy just not being talented enough or missing throws?
Right.
The guy's missing catches, fumbling the football, not making that tackle. It wasn't the head coach this year for the Packers.
Always the coach, Vito. It
right?
always falls
upon
on
your
the leader.
shoulders.
It always falls on the leader.
Crazy how that is.
It's like we tell the quarterbacks growing up, you want to play quarterback? Okay. Well, when you lose, it's all your fault, too. Until you get to a certain level in the NFL, and then if you're good enough, it's not your fault. It's someone else's fault for not getting you there. But, like anything, I think it's hard, especially as a coach. I try to avoid blaming this person or saying this coach isn't doing a good enough job. And I feel bad because I know I said that, Cooter was in over his head a little bit.
But it was the truth. I mean, it was the truth.
It's not meant to be a criticism on him. It's just the guy's in a tough spot. he's preparing to be the quarterback's coach all year. And now the OC gets let go and he gets elevated to this position that he didn't ask for, right? And he's counting on Caldwell and some of these guys to help him out. It's just a tough position. And sometimes, like anything, right? First time on the job, you probably don't do the best job. You learn, right? You step back. And the next time you're in that position, man, you've learned a ton. It's no different from a candidate running for office, no different from being a manager the first time. I'm sure everybody who's got kids, they always talk about, first time parent, they're the worst, and the second time around, it's a lot easier. It's just the nature of what we experience as humans. But we think we're ready.
Well, right? We always think we're ready. But you know what? Being the offensive play caller and then becoming the head coach isn't always the easiest and smoothest transition. No. But now, Andy, it's happening left and right. Guys that were great offensive coordinators are becoming head coaches. And at young ages, like your age, you could be a head coach in the NFL. I mean, look at Sean McVay. He's the head coach, led them to a Super Bowl. But now this past season, not as good and no playoffs for him.
Right.
So there's the blame game. People are starting to blame him. Does he really know as much? Is he really that boy genius anymore? Because it didn't look like it. But then it's also about the players. But I want to just focus on this. Offensive play callers becoming head coaches. Because some might even say with the Lions, Matt Patricia, get out of here. You failed your 2 years. Darrell Bevell succeeded with Stafford. Stafford a career year nearly when he was healthy. Why not hire Bevell? Why not put him as a head coach, man? I mean, what do you think about that?
Question.
These OCs becoming head coaches.
It's a fair
question. And you think
question.
it's largely good, which I know you can't say it for every single situation.
Sure.
But largely, in the grand scheme of things, do you think it makes sense when a quarterback and OC are coexisting as highly as Stafford and Bevell were this past season to make that OC and to install him as a head coach?
Well, like anything, just because you're good on your side of the ball or a good coordinator doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good head coach. There's a completely different level of personality and responsibility that comes with being a head coach. And it might be something that Bevell doesn't even want, but if I was if Patricia were going to go, I would be hard-pressed to get rid of Darrell Bevell right now. I mean, like you said, the offense has shown significant improvement in all aspects of play. And I know they're not running the ball where they want to be yet. Some of that's still some personnel issues and injury issues, but it would take a lot of money from someone else to hire Darrell Bevell away from my organization right now, because I think he's that good for Stafford. I think it's the right person and the right fit and the right scheme. So hopefully they consider that route if it comes to that, or at least say to the next head coach, we'd really like for you to keep some continuity in the offense here. And I think Stafford has that kind of power. I think the Fords like him enough. But there is this, like you said, there's a huge push right now to bring in offensive-minded coaches, right? I mean, that's the sexy, young, hot topic. Bring in that young, good-looking guy like McVay who's going to fire these guys up, and the players want to play for him. And I mean, those guys are professionals. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're offensive or defensive. If you're a good coach, you're a good coach. If you're a good leader of men, you're a good leader of men. It doesn't matter what side of the ball you're on. But I think the next most important thing is, do you identify and hire the right people around you? Head coach can't do it all. He relies a ton on those assistants to get things right. And I think that's why we see organizations like the Redskins or the Lions or Cleveland tend to struggle year after year. I don't know if they don't do a good job of bringing in the right people around them, right? I mean, it's a huge, massive organization. And I don't want to go too into this nerdy stuff, but I did my master's thesis in systems theory, right? And you talk about within the system, everything has its role and its position, and it's all tied together, right? Well, if you put all of your cloud, all of your power, everything into one pillar and all the other pillars are weak around it, that thing's falling down. It doesn't matter how good the head coach is, right? You've got to be strong everywhere. And hopefully the Lions will get that together,
But it sounds like you're very hesitant to say it's going to happen.
You just don't know, right?
You got to keep questioning it. Well, look at what they just did with Patricia, what Patricia did, hiring his mentor from Syracuse.
Yes. Oh,
and
my
Paul
buddy
Pasqualoni.
hates it.
Pasqualoni failed miserably. Now, in 2018, they looked like they were turning it around, right? Second half of the year. They did in Patricia's defense, Pasqualoni's defense. But in 2019, this past season, Andy, they were god-awful, man.
Brutal.
They couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop the pass.
Brutal.
And that's Patricia's hire. So it goes back to hiring the right guys around you as well.
Not only that, how much say did Patricia and Pasqualoni have in the guys they brought in during the offseason, right? I still think they made some nice moves, but largely the pieces they brought in the secondary were a major disappointment. Now, how much of that is due to the defensive line and their struggles and the inability to get pass rush? I get it. It's all connected. But like we said, the entire system on that side of the ball is weak right now, and it starts at the top, right? Like a great coach can make average players play at a good level.
Yes.
Right? And so at some point it needs to be restructured there. I still think we're a ways away on personnel. I don't think they're that far away. I think part of it is, you get rid of Diggs because you have faith in the young safeties like Tracy Walker, right? You expect him to turn into a ball hawk and a playmaker at that level. And now it's escaped me, the young guy, the rookie from Boston College.
Well, from Penn State to Amani's good.
Right. The
Will Harris from BC.
So
maybe becomes good, but
you look at how young they are. I think Walker's in his third year, I want to say. So he's young. You got Harris is a rookie. You bring in Melvin, who's a journeyman. I thought he played pretty well the first half of the year.
I think the analytics say that he played well.
6 games, and then toward the end of the year struggled. I think Slay struggled with injuries. I think Coleman was the major disappointment for me.
And he was so sexy at first.
It was a
PFF,
major
Pro Football
disappointment.
Focus said great slot corner, and he had been. But for all the money they spent on him, he didn't live up to the bill.
Sometimes those slot corners are great because they've got great safeties ball hawking over top of them.
Backing them up,
now,
right? I'm
sure the Lions did their research on that, but I do think Walker and Harris are going to turn into good players. But that's a lot of youth back there, and all of a sudden now, all the initial mock drafts are talking about taking a corner, taking the kid from Ohio State.
Okudah. I know, yeah.
So now you're talking about maybe 3 starters in the back end who are second year or less. It's going to take some time. It's just a matter of, can you get the defense right in time for Stafford to still be playing at a high level?
And how much more time do you give to Matt Patricia then? Because you spoke of being a good leader of men inside the locker room. So on and off the field and how you deal with the egos is so darn important, Andy, as you know. So is Matt Patricia the right guy to lead this ship in the right direction? Now going to be in his 3rd year, and he's combined won how many games now? 9 and a tie. 9 wins overall, and he has a tie in 20-plus losses in 2 years on the job, man.
Yeah.
And Jim Caldwell in 4 years wasn't good enough. And he made the playoffs, Jim Caldwell. Is he the right guy, Patricia, though, to lead this team in the right direction, you think?
When you look at the big picture, I think one of the big problems people run into is they are not patient enough with their projects in anything, right? We signed you, we want instant gratification. The Rams are a perfect example. They hire McVay, they go to the Super Bowl. Well, McVay must be a great coach, right? He must be. Like, look what we did. You got a pretty loaded roster there, too.
Personnel's important, like you said.
New system, other teams are adapting. Well, this year, teams adapted a little and they had to step back. So I think the jury's still out on some of these guys. Unfortunately, I think Patricia falls into that, too. Will he do the things he needs to this year and this offseason to turn it around? Are they going to learn and adjust? Like you said, I think there were flashes early in the year this year, end of the season last year, where we really felt like they were turning the corner. Then we get injuries, we get some bad luck, some bad coaching and decisions, and all of a sudden everything just goes this year. But how can we hold it against Patricia when you play the last 7 games, I think, without Matt Stafford? And it's not like you had, like we said earlier, it's not like you had Jacoby Brissett as a backup. We're bringing in Jeff Driscoll, who has never had any success at the NFL level. It's just he's a complete unknown, right? And then you bring in Blau after that, who's a rookie. At that point, I can't hold that against Patricia, except that they didn't get a capable backup ready to go.
And that's with the GM, and it starts at top, like you said,
right.
Which is Bob Quinn as a GM. That was a decision
they decided to live with. And in the long run, I think it will help them because I think, like we talked about with, what might happen with the Chargers if they have a down year, Lions get great draft position this year. They've got enough young talent on that team that if they get some good picks and they're healthy next year, they can push to challenge. Obviously, they can play with the Packers. Obviously, they can play with the Bears. Minnesota's a matchup problem for them. But if they're healthy, I think they're 6-7 win team minimum this year, right? So now you improve some pieces, you make some growth. Maybe now you're 9, 10, 11. But to me, the problem before with Caldwell was that the way the team was built, I know they were a 10 game. I think one year they went 11-5. Can't remember what season. I just didn't ever feel like they were going to be a consistent 12, 13, 14 win type team. They just didn't have the talent there. There was too much of a gap between the Lions and the elite teams at that time. Remember they going to Seattle for the playoffs.
Got blown out 26-6. I never thought they had a shot myself going into that environment.
Right. You knew going in there all right, I just don't see how we stack up. We got a favorable matchup with Dallas that year because Dallas is another pretender that is always talked about like they have all this talent that they just don't. So we can play with them. But then it's like, do you really think, well, look at last year what happened when we played the 49ers. We go out to San Francisco. We got worked, right? I mean,
and by a bad San Fran team that was injury-ridden. Their quarterback,
before they had Jimmy.
I mean, Jimmy G, and he got hurt last year. And now there's that parallel. But I'll let you finish your thought before we get into that,
I just don't think they have – I don't think they had the talent they needed under that regime, whether it was Caldwell's fault or Mayhew or whoever else. They just seemed like they were going to hit their ceiling about 11 wins every year.
So, Andy, I mean, it's about building a roster. And San Fran, the NFC champs, have built their roster the right way with their GM, John Lynch. And they have the right head coach. To have made the leap they did from 2018 to 2019, it took having the right two guys in charge, as the head man and Kyle Shanahan, also the GM and John Lynch. Very competent dudes. And they've proven it this year more than ever, obviously, with the season they had.
Sure. Yeah.
And you can argue right now, Andy, and you might believe it yourself, they were the best team in the regular season all the way throughout. They had very few stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
Garoppolo was good enough. Wasn't great, but was good enough all year long. Their defense, stout all season long. Then they blow out the Packers in the NFC title game, and now are playing for the Super Bowl after that horrible season last year.
Yeah.
And their coaching staff was coaching the Senior Bowl, like the Lions just did, coaching the North team. So
feeling some parallels.
People are trying to make that parallel now, that connection, Andy. Do you think there is such a thing between the Lions and the San Francisco 49ers?
I think you see, it's like anything. When you want to see something, right, then you find evidence of it. I think that what you really have to do is you clear the names, right? You clear the team names and the organizations. You just start comparing across the board. Okay, O-line to O-line here, quarterback to quarterback, receiver to receiver, D-line to D-line. No, not yet. Sure, there are some coincidences, right? There's some personnel that matches up okay, but the Lions they're not capable of running the ball like San Francisco. The one thing I'll give San Fran credit for, Lynch and Shanahan, they have an identity, they live by it, and they stick to it. And I think the teams that do that, I think Kansas City's another team like that. They have a clear identity, they know who they are and what they want to do, and they're effective with it. Tennessee was like that. Houston is like that. I think the teams that are good, they have the pieces in place to know what they want to do. But when you have an inferior talent at certain positions, like some teams do, what is your identity? Because your identity, you can't go out there and run the ball against an elite team. Well, then it doesn't matter if that's your identity. If you can't get it done, what's it going to do for you? I think the Lions want to be there. I still think they need I think we need upgrades on the offensive line and at running back. I like Johnson, but to me, when I watch Carry-On, injuries aside, I still think he's a 1B type running back in the NFL. I don't think he's that premier number one Ezekiel Elliott type back. I think he's a good do-all, like a 1B complement. I still think they need an upgrade. Either they need an upgrade ahead of him, or somebody needs to be brought in instead of Scarborough to kind of fit that. But look out though, because Derrick Henry might not get franchised this year, so who knows? No, I don't think the Lions are anywhere near that level. I think they're still maybe 2 years behind where San Francisco was. Because San Francisco had some nice pieces
already last year.
Time.
And then if Jimmy G didn't get hurt last year,
he doesn't get hurt, right?
Who knows, right? Not as good as this year, let's say, right?
No.
That's hard to predict and hard to say. But still a relevant squad that was going to be competing in games week in, week out. And even more, I know people can bring up they competed. Like I just used that term. And it could be misconstrued and said right now with the Lions this past year, they were competitive because they lost by a touchdown a lot of times or were in the lead nearly every single week. But they really weren't competitive after Stafford went down. Sure, when they had him, but then still they were 3-4-1 with them.
Right.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
Okay? San Fran's a different story, and it's about the personnel. It really starts with that, and that's why it starts up top with the GM. Lions GM is Bob Quinn. Has he proven to be a competent GM yet? Maybe, but not quite. John Lynch has now. He has. So he has that calling card, has that clout right now in his favor. Quinn doesn't have that built up for himself yet.
No. And you saw the comments from Sherman during media week.
That was brutal, man, to hear that from
You have
Sherman.
the reputation of San Francisco as being a winning organization, despite a few years here where they were brutal. I mean, just as bad as any Lions team outside of the 0-16 year, right? But they were bad. The Lions don't have, like I said, they don't have that credit in the bank. We do not have any credit. We can't get a loan from any of these guys.
No cachet,
in
man.
belief, right? To say like, no. Hey, trust me. We can get this done. You got to trust us. Look, we've done it before. They don't have that. It's been too long. But for years, dating back to when Harbaugh was there, you think about what San Francisco's identity was. They were physical. They ran the football, and they had a nasty front seven. And what are they now? They're physical. They run the football, and they got a nasty front seven. And they've paired it, bringing in Sherman, being healthy in the secondary. They're just better across the board than the Lions are talent-wise right now. We get it, we get some upgrades at D-line, and linebacker will be a different defense. But I think we're too far away on too many pieces. I think we're better offensively. I think we're more explosive, the Lions are, than the 49ers. I think the Lions have as good a receiving core, and especially with Hawkinson coming back in year 2, I think they're as good a receiving core as anywhere in the NFL. Hands down, right?
Physicality you need, though. You need more of that. Up front, the front seven, San Fran, that's the difference maker. If you want to compare the Lions and San Fran, even just on the surface, Andy, like we're kind of doing, we're diving a little bit deeper than that, too. But that's the big difference maker. The Niners know their identity. They've been that physical and bringing that physical brand of football since the days of Harbaugh, like you said.
Yeah.
So even when they've been bad, they've had players capable of that, and they've tried to play in that style. And especially with Harbaugh and now with Kyle Shanahan. And now it's about the Chiefs playing them in the Super Bowl. Can the Chiefs match that physicality that the Niners bring to the table? What do you think about that? That's going to be the big thing that the Chiefs will be tasked with. Can they keep up when it comes to the physicality that the Niners bring to the table?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest struggle for Kansas City. I think you saw that during the playoff game last year with New England. I think they struggled with the physicality that New England brought. Now, I know it was a close game, but when you think of Kansas City, you think of high flying, high scoring, right? And I mean, they can light up the scoreboard with anybody. But it's a different brand of football. It doesn't really matter what your brand is on offense if you can't stop their offense. I think we see this consistently. It's a lot easier to win with a dominant run game than it is with a dominant pass game when you get into the playoffs, you get into high-level football, because there's just not much you can do when somebody runs the ball right down your throat. Like, they are physically better than you. And you watch that Niners-Packers game, they're running, they're pulling both guards, they're pulling center and tackle, right? And they get out on the edge, and they are just taking people out on that Packers defense. I mean, it looked like they're running, it's like old school buck sweep. They do a lot of really nice things with some of their inserts and their wham, where they combine some different schemes to make it difficult on the front seven and the linebackers. But not only do they have exceptional schemes in what they do, they're just better up front. When they get on a block, you saw bodies on the ground. Their running backs were not getting touched till they were past 5 yards downfield. How do you stop that? If you can't line up and physically match up with somebody, you got to create movement and you got to create confusion. You can only do that so many times in the game before you get beat over the top on something. It's very, very difficult to stop. And we've, at Chippewa, we've been on that side of it as an offense and as a defense over the last years. We had years with when we won the state championship, Andre Chenault and Javon Kimson and Myron Harris, where it didn't really matter what you want to do on the other side, because sooner or later our guys were just better than you, right? Sooner or later you're going to get a one-on-one, you're going to be better. We had years where, playing Mike Weber. We have 9 guys up by the box, and it's like so they just break tackles, right?
If you're good, you're good. You're going to break the tackles regardless, right?
So I think, I guess that'll kind of segue into some of the matchups I'm sure you want to talk about, but it's going to be a really difficult matchup for Kansas City's defense. Not to say they can't do it, but the style of play is very different. You don't see that from the Chargers. You don't really see that too. I mean, they're not at the same level as the Raiders. Denver's not nearly as good. So you think about the teams in their division. I don't think any of those teams really simulate what the Niners are going to bring with their personnel groupings, their formations, and what they're able to do. It's going to be a tough matchup for them.
And what you just talked about with the running game, well, that opens up the passing game from Jimmy G over the top, and maybe he then is able to expose the Chiefs secondary subsequently. What do you think about that matchup for Jimmy G going up against the Chiefs defense, and what do you see happening?
Yeah, I think the what you have to do because of what they do, and they're in so many personnel sets with either 2 tight ends and a running back, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, right? Tight end, 2 running backs. It forces a defense to get out of their too high alignment. You can't play 2 high safeties against those sets, or they're just going to pound the ball at you all day. You can try. I mean, if you're phenomenal up front, you might be able to get away with it for a little bit, but it's going to wear you down, especially going playing in a hot environment. So now what happens when you do finally cheat somebody down? Does Kansas City match up well enough in the secondary to stop what San Francisco is going to do? And one of the really unique things that Shanahan does is even if you match up well on the outside, even if you can match up at corner, I don't know who's going to match up with Kittle. That's a really tough matchup. That guy's an elite tight end. I mean, he is a really, really tough matchup. But now when Kittle gets out, so let's say you want to do what a lot of teams do. New England's famous for bracketing Kelsey, right? They would just take away Kelsey or Hill against the Chiefs last year. Well, now they've got multiple running backs. They can get out of the backfield after the play action game, get them matched up on your extra linebacker that you had to put in the game, right? You can't play your 4-2-5 against them. They're just going to pound it. You can't play nickel. So now you've got an extra linebacker in who's now got to cover. He's got to play run, be disciplined with his responsibility, and then also work back into pass coverage and pick up matchups out of the backfield. Shanahan does a great job of moving guys around with motion, post-snap movement, bringing guys underneath the formation to get the matchups they want. That's the thing that you give those guys that much time at the NFL level, they can create matchups all game long if they want to. It's really tough to stop.
And the quarterbacks that are elite, like Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs can carve you up, too, if given enough time. Now, will he get that against that ferocious San Fran front seven?
Yeah, right. So then that becomes a matchup on the other side. Can San Francisco cover long enough? And Kansas City they do a lot of the same things. And most of the NFL teams are good at this. It's just that they have better personnel and they're a little bit better with what they can do with it. But you're basically trying to create matchups. We talk about when you design a play, right? I tell our guys, and when I'm teaching the quarterbacks, all right, when we have a play, there's basically 4 things you want to happen. Like every play has one of these 4 designs. Either you're trying to create a mismatch, right? And at the NFL, it's a ton of mismatch. You're trying to outflank the defense, so maybe you just pin everything inside. You don't have to block everybody as well, right? Maybe you're not as good interior blocking. Okay, just wall them off in there. Let's get outside. You're trying to overload the defense, so your flood concepts and things where if they're playing zone or anything, you're basically going to send more guys through that zone than they can cover, or you're going to divide them, right? Okay, let's say they're really good on the outside. We don't want to worry about their DN. We're going to position block there. We're going to run some of our wham and trap schemes and just try to create a quick crease in the middle that we can explode through. So now you think about what they're doing, and Andy Reid is a master of getting guys in space and getting matchups. And he has been for years, all the way back to Philadelphia. They were phenomenal with that. I think Andy Reid is one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL. Well, now you look at the weapons they have, an elite tight end, unmatchable speed on the outside, backs out of the backfield who you can't cover. It's the same thing. It's going to be, can the Kansas City O-line hold up against a pass rush of Bosa and the 49ers? To me, that's what it comes down to. Because San Francisco, with 2 weeks, is it Saleh? I forgot how to say his name. The D coordinator, the guy from Dearborn.
Robert Saleh, yeah.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job with that unit. He's got great personnel, but You give those guys 2 weeks to scout everything you do. Oh man, you're going to see some defenses that you've never seen in your life.
Crazy schemes, right? Just scheme to get Andy Reid into a tizzy, right? But then Andy Reid is a superb and elite play caller, and along with OC Eric Bieniemy, who should be a head coach by now, too, which I don't get how he's not a head coach. But
it's gonna be
those two play callers, man, how great are they as play callers? Can you elaborate a little bit more? I know you started to get into Andy Reid, but him being a play caller along with Bieniemy being his OC.
Yeah, I think Bieniemy, the nice thing, whether it's by design from Andy or from Bieniemy, like they let them do what they want to do. They've really done a nice job of stealing a lot of good stuff from the college level. And you talk about, I mean, to me, most NFL offenses are kind of boring to watch. Like the college game is far more creative. Now, I know they don't, the quarterbacks don't play at as high a level, but you watch the way Bieniemy and Reid work, like I said, to force one-on-one matchups that you don't want. Right? They have the pieces in place. And one of the big things is you have to have an elite tight end. Like, maybe not elite, but you have to have a tight end that is effective in the run game and the pass game. Every team that has won the Super Bowl in the modern era since the 49ers has had a highly productive or effective tight end because it creates a huge problem, right? Like, okay, well, if this guy's a good blocker and we're worried about, like you said, that tight end on the line with a fullback coming through, we're not going to play our nickel package. We just can't. Right, so we're going to put another linebacker in. But now our linebackers, they can't cover either of those guys. So now we got to have safety help. Well, now if we have safety help, now Hill is one-on-one, and we can't run with that dude. So with what they do, and now even if we do, well, shoot, now Mahomes can scramble. He can extend.
He's going to scramble. I was about to say he's going to scramble and get a bunch of yards, too.
What do you do? And I think that's what Bieniemy and those guys do is they give Mahomes multiple options on so many plays in terms of pairing the run game with RPOs and then making all of their RPOs and play actions look similar. So it's even tougher on the defense. And then on top of it, you've got misdirection, you got motion, you got guys coming from the other side of the field, you got reverses, you got God knows what you can do. It's just it's got to be a lot of fun to call and create an offense when that's all you do all the time.
Could you imagine trying to devise a strategy right now to beat San Fran's defense? But then you have the knowledge, all the years of experience as an offensive play caller, as Andy Reid does, and Bieniemy now, the name that he's built up. And obviously it helps to have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who I think is the best QB in the game right now, and no offense to Lamar Jackson, but throwing it and he can run it.
Yeah.
And then they have the weapons on top of that. I don't think they're unbeatable, and especially in this matchup, but I have the Chiefs winning. And I think because they're long overdue, Andy Reid is. And Mahomes and the Chiefs last year should have won against the Patriots. Patriots still had the edge. But this time around, I really like the Chiefs. And San Fran's going to play great. Still, you know what? I'll say it was the best team in the regular season, but I got the Chiefs in a close one. How about you in this Super Bowl on Sunday in Miami, Florida?
How many points are you? What's a score prediction? You think it's going to be low scoring? Is it going to be middle of the road?
I think like a 27 or 31-24 kind of game.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I could see it being in the same range there. I think both defenses could potentially struggle. I think San Francisco is better suited on defense to stop Kansas City because, I mean, it's the old cliche, but at some point, if you throw the ball, you still have to get protection, you have to be accurate, and the guy has to catch it. So things can go wrong, right? More things can go wrong there. I don't think Kansas City can stop the 49ers run game. I don't see them being able to shut that down. To me, the question is, and this is the key, and I think it will happen, if the 49ers can slow down Mahomes in the first half, if they can sustain that initial flurry and they can get out in front and control the clock running the ball, I think the Niners win. I'm gonna take the Niners in a close one. I just think that their ability to run the ball and stop the run on the other side are too tough to beat in this sort of matchup. I think with the extra time to prepare for the offense, they can do a lot of things that slow down that KC attack in the first half as they're adjusting. You don't know what to prepare for. You prepare for everything, right? So I think the Niners are going to get it done. I could see the Niners grinding the clock out, controlling time of possession. I could see this being like a 40, maybe a 38-minute time of possession game for the Niners, and that's how they get it done. But I wouldn't be, like you said, I wouldn't be shocked either way.
And it almost has to come down to time of possession. I think if the Niners win and the Niners getting that early lead, for the Chiefs to come back from that, this isn't the Houston Texans that they're playing, right?
Right.
So a different story when the Chiefs were able to overcome that big deficit, come back, win that ball game. That was more doable. Against this stout San Fran defense, San Fran getting that lead early on, I don't think the Chiefs are coming back.
No, if they get out to it, I think that Bosa and the boys create some problems there that you've got to be ready to answer for. But I just don't think the 49ers run game is going to get slowed down by Kansas City.
And no really offense to the Chiefs defense. It's against anybody at this point, right? Based on what they've done and accomplished all year long, and then when you look at what they did against the Packers once again, it's almost to the extent where I don't care how good or stout your defensive front seven is, San Fran's going to run over it. They're bigger and better on the line, and they can just run all over you subsequently too.
And they don't care. I mean, San Francisco, Shanahan does a great job. They don't care if it takes them 18 plays to score. They're not going to get frustrated.
And especially against the Chiefs, I think they should go with that direction, that strategy, because I think you want to run out the clock against the Chiefs and don't give them the ball back, right?
It's very frustrating. It's hard to get into a rhythm offensively. And then you start to press a little bit and you stress like, oh God, we got to score every time we get the ball. I've been in games like that as a coordinator. It's happened to us where, things just aren't going your way. You don't feel like you're playing poorly, but like, man, it's just, they're just eating up the clock, and you're kind of a high-powered offense, so they want to keep the ball away from you, and you know what they're doing, but they're actually executing it. Then you get the ball back, and the Chiefs, even if they score right away, the Chiefs might score in 2 plays. Well, now you're right back on the sideline, and you start to press, and then guys start to do things. Maybe they're trying to do a little bit too much, and the receiver, takes his route vertical when he's not supposed to because he thinks he sees something. And now all of a sudden, like what should have been an easy 3rd and 6 conversion, you're punting the ball back, and then you don't get the ball again for another, 10 minutes of real time, 15 minutes of real time, whether or not it's game clock time. It's tough to match up with. So to me, for Kansas City, they've got to do a great job. They got to avoid negative plays. Just keep the chains moving. Don't get greedy. If San Francisco is going to take things away on the outside and over the top, just keep hitting the stuff underneath. Establish the run game. Take your dink and dunk. Work your way down the field. Get Mahomes in a rhythm. And don't let Bosa affect your game plan by dropping back and letting him, affect what Mahomes wants to do there and make some disruptive plays. I think they got to be patient. I think they got off to a hot start so that they don't have to press and try to come back from behind. But if they get up on San Fran, like you said, is Jimmy G...
Can he make those throws? He threw 8 passes. Was that the truth? 8 passes only he had to throw in the AFC.
Can he come back?
Or NFC title game? I mean, that was easy against the Packers.
Right. Can he lead those drives when they really need it on the biggest stage?
Biggest stage.
This
in the
is
Super Bowl,
different.
man. Like he's calm, cool, and collective typically, and he looks at, he plays like it, gives off that vibe. But it's the Super Bowl now, so that's the thing. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. So that's a good thing to bring up as well.
We'll see.
And a big-time factor in this one coming up on Sunday. And, hey, maybe one day Robert Saleh comes back to his hometown, takes over the Lions head coaching position, and you take over the OC job.
Well, I think I'd rather just be an analyst.
Be an analyst, behind the scenes and helping out with the calling of plays. But, Andy.
But if the Lions call, I joked about this years ago, if Stafford ever wants to come out and work, I'm more than happy to do some pro bono work and do my part as a Lions fan.
TD quarterback will take him on, huh?
Yeah,
pro bono.
We could take him on. He can come out and throw with us. Matt, if you're listening anytime, we've had his wife Kelly out to my wife's Pilates studio before.
Beautiful.
So we've got some
synergy in the making
there.
already.
Yep, they can come out. We can we'll keep it discreet. A little private workouts. He can coach our guys up. So Matt, you're welcome over at Chippewa Valley High School anytime you want.
Well, a beautiful high school there, too, at Chippewa Valley. And Andy, thanks for all the time, man, on Sundays with Dominic and Vito this week.
Appreciate it, Vito. Awesome to be here.
Adios.
Thank you.